It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we move into a Tuesday. Gary, how are you?
I'm doing very good. I'm very, very grateful. I'm very appreciative this time of the year. Christmas right around the corner. And I would like to thank Santa Claus for bringing so much stupidity to the world this year, because it makes my life and my job so freaking easy to do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Santa Claus.
Yeah, thank you, Santa. We are very grateful for that. Look, we'd rather have boring jobs, truth be told. We'd rather everybody not be so bat soup crazy. But Democrats. So that's all I got to say.
And occasionally Republican.
Yeah. That's when it gets really fun.
But
that's when everybody starts doing shots at the Christmas party.
Well, what got me, and I don't know why, maybe it was just yesterday was the we had like 3-4 days in a row where the media, everybody wondering what in the world, the story came out about the president, even back when he pardoned the turkeys, in November. And
by the way, they named the turkeys Hunter and James and signed a legal document. I don't know what that was about, but anyway.
Well, they
just secretly.
I don't know why, but I'm thinking of what you do to turkeys around Thanksgiving. I don't know. I don't know if that's where you were going, but it's just, it was completely befuddled. He has no idea what's going on, and all of a sudden, let's go to CNN and Acosta here.
Yeah, all right.
And he had I can't think of his last name, Greenberg, the pollster on yesterday, and talking about how grim it is, because yesterday is when you really, to me, it was It was just what I've heard the last 3 or 4 days, and then it got to me yesterday where it was like blowing my head up.
Yeah.
Where it was like, we don't do. Is there too much of an expectation from the people in America about what government should do? Because things are just wonderful right now, and the American public just doesn't get it. And this gets partly the pollster, basically saying, it's inflation. It's prices, you idiots. But he didn't say it that way.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
But here's this back and forth.
The question I have, though, is inflation is cooling. I mean, if you look at gas prices, they're going down. They're around $3 a gallon in the Washington, D.C. area, Maryland, and Virginia. I suspect it's fluctuates depending on where you are around the country, but generally coming down. People aren't feeling that enough just yet.
It's a bubble.
Yeah.
It's a bubble. People, look, what I have discovered in doing my polling in Europe, in the UK, and here, is what matters is how many months people have been struggling to deal with inflation. And each month they get madder and madder about it, as long as their wages are trailing prices. And
so they're grumpy right now.
There's still look, get out of the bubble. They are it's 3% higher than it was when Biden came in. In the last 6 months, there's been a decline in disposable income. So the context is you have to start there. Inflation is like 30 points higher than the next problem, and you can't. What the president currently doing is his tweets always start with "we're making progress," and then he mentions prices. If you look at his ads aimed at black voters, it's mainly trying to convince them they're doing a good job. But that's not where they are. They are not. They are losing ground every month and anger about it. But then you have to stop. You have to say, what's the main problem? How do you deal with the first problem, which is inflation?
Stanley Greenberg, Democratic pollster, just so you know. But you can you can see it in Acosta's face.
Yeah,
it's just like, and then all the stories on what's going on. Why doesn't the public appreciate what an absolutely wonderful government that they have right now. And it's just, and you just like, you shake your head. You're like, are they purposely being stupid? Because the last thing I would want to do is purposely be stupid.
Well, by the way,
On the radio. I mean, I'd hate to sit there and, and take a position where I know that I'm gaslighting, but I believe that I have to stick with the narrative of my tribe, and so I'm going to try to make a ridiculous argument that you can't make.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I look at it and go, well, I think they're repeating things almost like they're trying to do a Jedi mind trick. One of the things that they always pick is the gas prices, because gas prices do fluctuate. And he did mention that. But in this, hey, things are coming down and blah, 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 blah. You can't really say that about inflation. You can't say that about anything in terms of the prices where you might get to that point at some point where you can get beyond talking about inflation, but you're not going to get to the point where you can say, no, prices have come back down. They've come back down. They come back down. And that's what they imply when they say this. Inflation is cooling, everything and blah, blah, blah. Anybody that's watching that going, even liberals, they're watching that saying, no, prices aren't coming down. You're delusional. I'm struggling here at the end of the year trying to figure out how I'm going to do it in 24, make ends meet. I'm using credit cards, running those up to the max. No, prices aren't coming down. You're delusional. That's the thing. They can't talk in the abstract, and they're so used to talking in the abstract. Well, blah, 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 blah. Whatever it was back in the day, single payer, if it were just this way, if we were just to do this, if we just had comprehensive immigration reform, we talked about that yesterday. It's mind-boggling that they can't snap out of it. You've got to, if you're on the left and you're running for office, well, frankly, do what the Dallas mayor did. Become a Republican. Because the problem is that for the left, the days of talking in the abstract are gone. Reality has hit, every single wall. There's no way to walk through your day now and look at all the abstract things they used to talk about politically and the points they used to make and the talking points they used to make, which were in the abstract. It's no longer a theoretical discussion, including what's going on right now with Hamas and Israel. And by the way, that comes from the current governor of California. Remember, Gavin Newsom made a trip to Israel and he came back and he said, look, the whole thing about Israel and all of that, and I don't know if he specifically mentioned two-state solution. Now, he, by the way, could have backtracked this. Liberals could have cornered him. But he said, it's no longer this theoretical discussion. In other words, he was basically acknowledging, this has gotten very real very quickly after October 7th, which is true. One lucid moment from the governor of California.
When you look at the Democratic Party and you realize that the statesman over the last 10 days has been Fetterman, that's how you know how bad the Democratic Party is.
And they're trying to float Hillary again, for a couple of days, Hillary's out there defending Biden and blah, 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 blah.
No, but Fetterman's doing the opposite. That's my
I know.
That's my point. Yeah.
I know. But the whole thing, they're trying to change the focus on anyone and everyone, and that's how bad it has gotten. I've been saying, I don't know how you run in 24. If you're running for office, if you're in the House or one of the seats that's up in the Senate, I don't know how, as a Democrat, I don't know how you do it. I don't know what you campaign on. I guess you get state specific on things, and you just don't go outside of that bubble.
You know, I'm reading here a couple of things. What am I reading here? Charles Cook and Jim Garrity, National Review. Okay. For months, the president and First Lady Jill Biden have told aides and friends they are frustrated by the president's low approval rating and the polls that show him trailing former President Donald Trump, the front runner for the Republican nomination. And in recent weeks, they have grown upset that they are not making more progress. I wonder, has Joe Biden considered not being a terrible president?
Well, you know,
I ask this because Biden's dire poll numbers are always presented as if they're a mystery.
Right.
Look at the post language: frustrated, unacceptably low, upset that they are not making more progress. Clearly, President Biden thinks that he should be more popular than he is, and so evidently does the press, which has taken in some quarters to the most preposterous conspiracy theorizing. Week in, week out, the topic is covered as if the public is failing the president rather than the other way around. He's a good leader. We're informed. But for some reason, the public just hasn't noticed it.
Well, they've done that on every front.
Right. The problem is it isn't true. Joe Biden is not a good leader. His approval rating is not unacceptably low. And the public has no obligation to develop a different view of him than the one it has at the present. Had he wished to, Biden could have been a mediocre president, having come into office after a bipartisan COVID-era spending binge. He could have refused his party's request for trillions of dollars of unnecessary spending and thereby avoided much of the inflation that has haunted him since 2021. Having been invited to violate his own oath of office by issuing an illegal eviction moratorium, an illegal student loan amnesty, and an illegal vaccine mandate, he could have publicly explained that he lacked the authority and would not illegitimately claim it. And having inherited a southern border that was more stable than it had been in a while, he could have played the adult in the room and informed the loudest voices within the progressive movement that he had no interest in deliberately reopening the flow. But he didn't do those things. And they have it right here, too. Then Garrity writes about the whole thing with the negotiations going on that look like, they're going to go to the beginning of the year now. You notice this week that the debate over additional Ukraine aid is almost always framed as those stubborn, intransient, isolationist Republicans aren't willing to help Ukraine. And it is true enough that Republicans insist that one of their top priorities, border security, gets funded along with alongside the aid for Ukraine as well as Taiwan and Israel. Mike Johnson, the speaker, said at a Wall Street Journal summit yesterday, my message to Ukrainian president will be the same as it's been to President Biden. This is an important battle for all the reasons we know, but I don't think it's a radical proposition to say if we're going to have a national security supplemental package, it ought to begin with our own national security.
Yeah.
But notice how rarely President Biden and congressional Democrats are portrayed as stubborn or intransient for refusing to make the border security changes that Republicans want in order to reach a deal with Ukraine. And no, Republicans are not demanding the construction of a big, beautiful wall from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean, even though their offer does call for resuming the border fencing construction that Biden canceled at the start of his presidency. Senate Republicans want the current overloaded system of the silent claims to be changed so that not everyone who shows up at the border says they're seeking asylum gets to stay in the country indefinitely.
Yeah.
And so these are all things, everything. And for the fact, for them, do they actually know? If you went to Jim Acosta, does he actually know that what he is promoting is pure BS? Do Democrats actually know that the problem with this president and the Democrats is the problems that we see today are not, this isn't a situation where these problems came because of world events, whatever. they created the problem. The public is understanding they created the problem. And so they understand that if they created the problem, they certainly wish to do anything but solve the problem.
Well, I think, it's quite possible that he buys into it. He's so delusional and he just doesn't get it. Or he does. And he's trying to make this absurd case so that Democrats can maintain power. Look, for those, secondary surrogates, the media, the liberal media, they know. They don't want conservatives in power. So you do everything to keep up the image that, and there's no way to win that. There's no way on inflation and the economy to win it right now. Just avoid it. Your old buddy Chris Cuomo, take a note from him. He avoided the biggest scandal about his brother for a long, long time. Just avoid it.
We didn't talk about this. Did you notice that the latter part of last week, I forgot to talk about it yesterday, it popped into my head today. Did you notice they were bringing the term Bidenomics back again?
Yeah.
After not doing it for about 2 weeks, and then they brought it back like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, over the weekend.
Yep.
Karine Jean-Pierre mentioned Bidenomics.
Yep.
Biden mentioned, and it's like, I think it got to the point where they're like, we're not mentioning it. Now we're being mocked for not mentioning it, so we've got to mention it again.
We don't need to look afraid. Well, and he may have done that. Hey,
yeah,
I'm proud of Bidenomics, blah, blah, blah. I can see Joe doing that. It's crazy.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. It pays to have a tire maintenance routine, especially during the winter driving season. Between black ice and heavy snowfall, winter weather can impact your tires and your productivity in a number of ways. Here's a tire maintenance tip to help you avoid downtime and roll safely through winter. Check your tire pressure during every pre-trip inspection and make sure they're properly inflated according to the manufacturer's recommendations. Cold weather naturally causes tire pressure to decrease, and underinflated tires can wear faster and impact your fuel efficiency. Maintaining proper tire pressure is essential to maximizing the performance, safety, and lifespan of truck tires.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just listen to the guitar a little bit there.
That's from our colleagues down the hall. That was produced right here in this building.
Yeah. About, 75 feet from us?
Yeah. By real musicians. And they are. They're spectacular. They're great.
Coming up following the bottom of the hour, why you need to stop breathing.
Yeah, stop it.
And you're like, what are you talking about? Well, you got to wait for this.
Yeah. Well, you can breathe in. Just don't breathe out.
Yeah. You can inhale.
Don't exhale.
Bill Clinton, right. You can't exhale.
Right. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're destroying the planet. I swear to you, new study is out.
Which is actually easier these days because everybody's smoking weed.
I am the Eggman. Everybody's smoking pot. Everybody.
Hold it. Hold it.
Give the gift of the Red Eye Radio app this holiday season. Merry Christmas from Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Red Eye Radio.
Well, I don't know. You might not make it to Christmas if you follow this advice.
Yeah, what's that?
This is a new government-funded study out of Great Britain conducted by scientists at the UK Centre for Ecology. Purports to show that human breathing causes global warming.
Yeah.
The study's authors are urging caution in the assumption that emissions from humans don't make an effect. That your human breathing is destroying the planet. Don't you dare think that it's not.
Told you.
Well, we knew that was coming. I'm amazed it took that long to have a study on it, because you and I go all the way back to talking about the idiots that were out there saying, this goes back 15 years ago. You and I just started working together. Remember the the ecology futurists came out and said that all major cities have to go. That we have a population at that point, what would it have been, 7 billion?
Yeah.
Forgot what it was.
Yeah.
Remember they said we need to go down to 1 billion people.
Yeah.
We need to get down to 1 billion people, and there cannot be a city over 25,000.
Right.
And so it's like, okay, we knew they would get there. In order to save the planet, human beings must die.
Yeah.
Then why are you saving the planet?
Exactly.
What's the
It's like that series that what was it, after humans or after man or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, we don't care. We don't want to know. We don't care. It's not going to be us. I don't care.
Funny you say.
It's going to be Will Smith and a bunch of animals. That's it.
I'm watching it. You know, it's on. I start watching, and they show the buildings decaying. I'm about 10 minutes into it. I'm like, well, why am I watching it? I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be able to watch it if it was happening, and there would be no human beings to watch it. So if a city rots and nobody is there, is it really rotting?
Right. Well, I see the weeds, growing inside the office buildings, and I'm thinking, okay, if they're going to get to the point where they, animals evolve to the point of, mowing lawns and using weed eaters, I'll stick around. But otherwise, I don't want to know. I don't care. This is the problem that if you're going to put something interesting in it, it has no interest to me. None. The thing about exploring space is about, for some, our future, but also exploring what's out there and, that whole thing, exploring this idea of what if we weren't around? I don't care.
And think about it. We've solved, because of this, the whole males competing against females in sports. You're breathing heavier, so there are no sports. All sports have to be canceled, so people aren't breathing as heavily and expelling, I almost said exporting, expelling unnecessary global warming gases, especially carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere.
Which then, if we quit breathing out, I'm thinking about giving up breathing out, by the way. I'm seriously thinking about giving up exhaling completely. But it was before this report, by the way. I was going to do it as my New Year's resolution. I think I'll do something different. And then what are the plants going to thrive on? And, the plants are what, they actually thrive on what we're exhaling. And then that's good for the environment. We'll kill all the trees if we quit exhaling.
And there is that problem, too.
Yeah. It's, it's a conundrum. It really is. You and I have joked about this for years. The problem is humans. The problem is that we exist. The problem is that we're breathing out, because it's been thrown around, not in study form, the study coming out here is different, but it's essentially the culmination of all these years. And, people on the left, oh, you're being ridiculous and blah, 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 blah. Now here you go. The next is going to be, all right, mandatory birth control. And I think for the current generation, they're like, nah, we're good. We don't think we need it. We don't go near each other. Ew. It's...
Okay, I'm back to Demolition Man.
Exactly.
And the sex scene in Demolition Man.
Exactly.
By the way, if you've never seen Demolition Man, it's not what you think.
Yeah. No, you got to.
Yeah, it's not what you think at all.
And we've seen it before. Was it the governor of Oregon said we've got to, basically, reduce the population. You just mentioned reducing the population, but
reduce the GDP.
Reduce the GDP, and then
by 13% by
that's what it was. That's
by 2100.
That's what they were promoting. But and then we extrapolated out very quickly. Okay, that means a lot of people are going to die.
Yeah, hundreds of millions of people would die.
Yep. Third
Possibly
world
billions.
nations, that would be,
Right.
People would starve if you're going to that kind of reduction.
Right. Because remember, it's the GDP right now.
Yeah,
it's the GDP right now, and by 2100, not reduce the rate of growth.
Yeah.
By 13%, but cut what we're using right now. You have to cut right now 13% of the GDP, and that would have to stay steady all the way for the next 75 years.
Yeah. Well, and
think about it. If you talk about an average of 3% growth over 75 years, you're talking what? Economies, a world economy that would be way over 200% more.
Yeah.
Than it is right now.
Right.
And they're saying, no, we can never do that. Well, the only result of that would be hundreds of millions of people starving to death. People don't, and that's why one of the things we've said, and we said it yesterday, we said it last week a lot on a lot of different things. We said Republicans and conservatives need to start tearing everything apart. And I will say this, and in tearing everything apart, some of the best people doing it right now were former Democrats.
Oh yeah,
and you're looking at Michael Schellenberger, you're
Matt
looking
Taibbi.
at Matt Taibbi, you're looking at Barry White, all former Democrats. You're looking at Jonathan Turley, legal wise, doing that and looking at things that Democrats are doing.
Yeah.
All former, completely, totally loyal Democrats who have said this is insane where we're going, and you and I have really big. We talked about this yesterday on the comprehensive immigration reform, and we said, what do they mean by that? They never explain it. Well, we know what they mean by it, and they don't mean securing the border. They mean processing people to become citizens, whoever wants to come across the border. That's what comprehensive immigration reform is. That's why they never tell you what it is.
Right.
They never say, here's what we want to do with the border. They simply throw out comprehensive immigration reform because they believe you're an idiot, and if it sounds complicated, oh, it's comprehensive immigration reform. Well, then I want that person. They think you're an idiot, and they can sell you anything with the slogan.
Yep. And at least one Republican was an idiot who countered with, oh, no, not 5,000. We'll only do 3,000 a day for a brief moment last week.
Well, it's still apparently, still see it in the articles out there.
If it is not gone away, if that thought is not gone away, if that thing is introduced, if that idea is introduced anywhere on Capitol Hill by any member of GOP, then we're doomed. It's over.
Then
we're not going to fix the problem.
If the GOP goes for that, I'm voting for Kennedy.
Yes.
No,
exactly.
No, excuse me.
Well,
I'm voting for Fetterman. You heard Fetterman came out yesterday and said securing the border is not xenophobia.
Yeah.
A Democrat United States senator said that.
Right.
Securing the border, and it was Fetterman who said that.
I know. You couple that with his position on Israel, and it's like, what's going on with Fetterman? I mean, we're at this point, though. Seriously. And by the way, you mean Kennedy, the former MTV VJ, not Robert Kennedy.
No, I meant Robert Kennedy.
And she's not running. But
no, she's
as far as we know,
she doesn't have. Does she? Did she lose her show on Fox Business?
I don't know.
I thought she.
I don't know. I don't watch Outnumbered because I'm usually not watching TV. First of all, I don't watch a lot of
That
TV.
wasn't Outnumbered.
But no, but I mean, she's on Outnumbered a lot, and I
Oh,
don't.
okay.
I sometimes hear it on the radio because I have Fox News on the radio sometimes, but I don't know that I've heard her on it lately. But that doesn't mean anything.
We're so old
Yeah.
that we remember her on MTV.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's how old we are.
Right. Yeah. And you think about this. We were talking earlier this hour about, you mentioned Fetterman just kind of, on a couple of issues at least. Who did he talk to? I forget. He was talking to, I think it was NBC. I'm pretty sure I've got the article saved, but I believe I'm right on that. NBC News did an interview. I'll go back and double check that. But and this goes back to last week, and he said, he was saying, "Look, he was talking about his position on Israel. He's been defending Israel.
It was canceled in June.
Okay,
Sure.
all right.
Yeah.
And so Fetterman was talking about, a lot of people on the right actually have been acknowledging the fact that he's defending Israel's right to defend themselves and the whole thing. And he brought it up, and he said something to the effect of, I haven't completely changed or blah, 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 blah. I'm still for, he just threw the word choice out there. And I'm like, choice of what? And all these things. But I thought to myself, all right, but we've asked the question, is there a reckoning with some Democrats? I don't know if that's what's going on with Fetterman or just we're just now getting around to these issues and dealing with Fetterman on these issues, and that's where he stands and is, kind of always thought that way. I don't know. I don't. He's still a liberal. It's like the Joe Manchin thing, he's not going to act. He's not going to behave any differently in terms of his job as a senator. I don't expect that to happen. I could be wrong, but I don't expect him to, be moving further to the right.
You saw yesterday he wants to stop the sale of U.S. Steel to the Chinese company.
Right. Yeah. That's a big deal where he's.
Oh, I know it's
in his state. Yeah.
It's a huge. Did you see? And I think the
the
Chinese
$14 billion, I think.
Yeah, but I think the Chinese made this up. Did you see why they wish to buy U.S. Steel?
No.
And I think they did this in order to make the regulators of the Biden administration go, oh yeah, well this is why they bought it. They said because they believe that because of the infrastructure.
They use the word infrastructure.
Because of the infrastructure bill, so much steel will be produced for the United States that it's a good time for them to buy it. And I'm like, they're making that up.
Yeah.
They're making that one up.
I'll tell you, it could be a very, very, actually, it is a very big deal. But if you think about China taking possession or buying U.S. Steel, that's a big move.
Huge security concern.
Yeah, it's a massive, massive supply issue concern forever. If that transaction goes through, that could be a problem for, well, anything you use steel for.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, get through Christmas, get through New Year's, and then the New Year's resolution, stop breathing for 2024 so you don't destroy the planet.
Yeah.
By the way, the researchers investigated emissions of CO2, methane,
Yep. No, that's
And nitrous
Big.
oxide in
Yeah.
in human breathing.
Yeah.
Well, was it just human breathing they did to check that? I'm just trying to be I make sure they covered everything scientifically. Was it
Yeah.
just methane from your breath or
nope. The methane comes from somewhere else.
right? I mean, the examination of
The production and processing of food that we ingest. I'm just going to put it that way.
Okay, I think that's
It's
a very, very good way of putting
It is a
it.
byproduct of the processing of the food we ingest. Thank you. And you're welcome.
And I think we'll stop there without going into any other type of
Right.
minutia detail.
We'll pass on the gas, if you will.
Yes.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here. Sorry, my bad.
What?
Well, I said China instead of Japan.
Oh, on the U.S. Steel purchase.
Yeah, Nippon Steel wanting to buy. I know it's a Japan company. I said China, and you when afterwards because we got a few calls. No, it's a Japanese company, not China. And as you mentioned, it's like Gary, you might have thought that because early news stories earlier today were mentioning that it was a China company.
Right. Yeah.
And that must have stuck in my head.
Yeah,
I must have seen that earlier.
One of the news alerts, first thing, like moments after it came out, said China, but it is Japan. Either way, the concern would be supply issue, and then from there, okay, well, what's in the best interest? Japan's a strong trade partner. Look, China's a strong trade partner, but with the facilities, and they have, I don't know, I didn't count, but a couple dozen maybe facilities here in the U.S.
They've closed 3 in the last few years, and then, by the way, this is U.S. Steel, not we're talking about.
Right. You think about, all right, in fact, 3 of the 5 that were once in Pennsylvania, the one in Pittsburgh closed in 1984. The one in Homestead, Pennsylvania, closed in 1986. McKeesport closed in 2014. So you only have 2 of the 5 in Pennsylvania. And I'm guessing consolidation, maybe expansion there at the Mon Valley Works location.
And they have
Pittsburgh.
And also they have steel manufacturing.
By the way, there were 2 in Pittsburgh. One of them closed. The Mon Valley Works is still open.
They also have steel plants in Europe.
Right. Yep.
U.S. Steel does.
And so the concern would be a supply issue and also a control issue. It doesn't matter who the trade partner is. If there's any type of disruption to production. Now, Japan doesn't have, quite frankly, the space to, if you were to take the facilities that are open here in the U.S. and then try and consolidate them even only into a handful of facilities there in Japan, that doesn't make sense because then you're producing and then sending it. Now, they will be, as you mentioned during the break, opening it up to a global marketplace. This is something that we have seen with energy from the U.S., and we started exporting raw crude several years ago, which helped to stabilize the global oil prices. What this will do for steel, some believe, is this could lower the prices if you've got a much larger exporting potential as a company.
Yeah, steel has gone.
We'll see.
Steel has gone up, and over the 55%. I don't know the time period over the last year and a half or so. And the argument being made by those who are saying this would be a good deal, and that is in Fetterman. Fetterman came out, and Senator Fetterman, and said, steel companies shouldn't be owned. If it was China, you would have a solid point. If it's Japan, what if it's Europe? What if it was Great Britain? What if it was Germany? Would there even be a ripple of concern about it? Now, U.S. Steel is the 24th largest steel maker in the world.
Right.
They are number 2 in the United States. Nucor is number 1.
Yeah.
The point they're trying to make is because I think U.S. Steel lost money last year.
Yeah.
So if Nucor bought them, let's say they bought them, and instead then you would have more of a monopoly of steel prices. That's the point that's trying to be made, that the critics or the supporters saying it's, for the Nippon Steel in Japan to buy it is a better deal than if it was bought here in the United States, because then there would be more of a monopoly on steel here. I don't know whether that would be true or not, because steel, like anything, is sold on an international market.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's more likely or whether if you had, Nucor controlling everything, hypothetically, if that's what was happening in this case, whether the quick supply chain, being able to get the steel there faster,
right,
because is right here,
so
would be an advantage over Japanese steel.
So was Trump at a U.S. Steel location when he announced the steel tariffs? I forget which location he was at. Remember announcing it on the fly? And everyone was like, whoa. My question would be, and I guess only time will tell, if it is owned by Japan, does that take out the political pressure on things like tariffs, or does that increase it even further? How does it affect that kind of behavior or concern there? The political pressure on, the supply of steel. If you look at, in fact, the Bush steel tariffs, you go back to that. You had a number of plants, manufacturing plants, not steel plants, but plants that use steel in their manufacturing, that had to shut down and move out of the U.S. It was too expensive. And so I'm interested to see what economists think this is going to do long term. We just kind of laid it out there, what the two schools of thought are. But, the political pressure on, especially with tariffs, that was a big thing for him to announce, for Trump to announce when he did. It was a big deal. And when Bush did it, well, they had to reverse it. And, you can't create that kind of pricing pressure. I'm guessing that's what's happening with U.S. Steel. I'd have to go back and look and see what was driving those lost profits over the last year or so. And the reason that I believe it could be the case with inflation is that you see also the slowing down of the consumer on a lot of these big ticket items. We're seeing this in trucking right now, the shipment of certain goods. And that tells us what people are buying.
Well, remember, after a year, Trump also reversed the tariffs on steel and aluminum for Canada and Mexico with the free trade trade agreement. Came in. Australia was excluded from it. There were quotas for Brazil and South Korea. And then in August of 2020, Trump announced the U.S. was reimposing tariffs on aluminum imports from Canada. We know that when you do that, economic economic growth is stifled because prices go up.
Yeah,
And this is the one thing, and we had talked, when Trump wanted to put the tariffs on China, we agreed with that. We thought he was completely wrong to go after Europe, Canada, and Mexico, because those are the nations that you wish to have as trading partners. Mm-hmm. And his attempt to bring in India, remember that?
Yeah.
To bring in India, to say, let's deal with India instead of China, you and I also thought was a good thing. To wall off China because of, what China's government is, and to build a huge trading section of Europe, the free nations of Asia, mm-hmm. South America, right. North America, and create a huge trade zone of those free nations is the way you should go.
Right.
We have never objected to the tariffs on China because of what they do, but tariffs don't work.
No.
Tariffs will hurt you, and so if you're going to hurt yourself, open it up to expanding the future with your trading partners that have the same kind of government that you have, basically in the same type of democracy that you have. Yeah. That's what you should be attempting to do. So, but like I said, I agreed with what he did with China. Did not agree. And I know we're both in the same, have the same opinion here. Mm-hmm. What he did with Canada, Mexico, whatever. I mean, the whole thing was to get a better free trade deal, but USMCA ended up being almost identical to NAFTA. Right. So there was no difference. I know people will disagree with us on it. They can't tell us what made it different. They just believe, well, Trump said it was different, so it was different, and it wasn't different.
It wasn't.
It was very little different.
Right. There are very few things that changed, and with the things that did change, that was like squeezing a water balloon. All right, you gained over here, but it went over here.
Well, the one thing and he promoted it, was the fact that with the tariffs that he put on, that auto parts, would force auto parts to be made in the United States, Mexico, and Canada by the tariffs of what they did. And I said, well, if you're forcing that to happen, where you're saying basically you're creating a thing there, eventually they'll move to cheaper countries.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you put tariffs on other countries and even try to protect this region, it will come back and bite you.
Yeah. Right.
Because prices are everything. There is no escaping it. Government, people, and that's one of the problems that we have, though. Democrats believe that they can manipulate the Green New Deal. But Trump came in, and part of him thought he could regulate through tariffs an economy. Well, you increase prices, it's going to have an effect. Everything has an effect on the economy. If a government comes in and says, all right, we're going to put a 20% tariff on, well, then your cost is going to go up at least 20%. That's going to have repercussions. There is no free lunch.
Right.
Whether it's the Fed attempting to manipulate the dollar, whether it's the Biden administration through tariffs or Trump through tariffs, you can't save an economy by government manipulating it. But on both sides, people believe you can. On the left, well, no, we believe you can. Remember, Bernie Sanders was the one that really agreed with Trump on the tariffs.
No, I mean, he said it on a debate stage, or I don't know if it was a debate stage or an appearance or town hall that he had, but the media asked him. And he said, and I think this is verbatim, I agree with Mr. Trump on tariffs. Bernie Sanders. And the thing is that you look at that, and the reason that you and I support the pressure on China is because of intellectual property rights.
Yes.
If we don't get that in check permanently, and it's going to require every other trade partner we have to put the pressure on China. If we don't get that in check permanently, it will never be in check. We said this a few times during the Trump years, that if we don't get it done under Donald Trump, it probably isn't going to be done. Given the makeup of his economic advisors, that was their mission. They didn't get it done I don't think Biden or the left has any interest in getting it done. And now with the, if you think about the advent of AI and everything now that is, is actually going into motion with AI. I don't know that we will. I don't know that any amount of pressure on China can change it. I think we may be just in that era that's it's just gone. And there's not, because I don't know, first of all, even if we could put the pressure, or we did put the pressure on China, I don't know how you force them to enforce what we're telling them they have to enforce.
Well, is this a way for the Japanese steel industry to blunt a Trump presidency? Because remember, Trump put tariffs. I don't know if they did.
Well, that was my question earlier. How does it change?
Did they have the quota tariffs? I can't remember what the tariffs were on the Japanese steel, whether it was across the board or a quota tariff.
Right.
But they put it on there. The Biden administration took it off.
Right, yeah.
And so is this a way to blunt? Japan can say, fine, U.S. Steel, produce it.
Right. Yeah, we keep the facilities going. Yeah. Look, there's been a lot of change over the years with the cost of shipping, going through the roof.
Yeah, that's a great point.
There's been a lot of change of, all right, we will set up shop in the markets and countries or regions where we have a rise right now, a growing number of basically customers, of consumers. Well, the U.S. rules everything in that regard. I mean, to the extent, by the way, you had Harley Davidson start building bikes in India. And they were saying, well, look, we're building them there to sell them there. We're not building them to bring them back to the U.S. But that's the play. The play is you manufacture it in the market where you're selling it, so you have no shipping costs. It could be that not much changes in terms of the manufacturing and distribution here domestically.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Smart owner-operators make every single week as profitable as possible. One trip is not enough time to be considered profitable or unprofitable, and an entire month may be too much time to manage. 1 week is the right amount of time to deal with efficiently. To do so, look at the advantages and disadvantages of every day of the week. Match trip length to the optimum day of the week. Plan to deliver on the day you have the best opportunity of getting a load. Your personal weekly plan will vary depending on the weekly delivery flow cycle of your region, typical length of haul, personal requirements, and other factors. What's important is to have a specific weekly plan that helps you be successful. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. I think it was just about a year ago, it was in 2022, that the Biden administration lifted the steel tariffs on Japan. So that's what got me to thinking, okay, are they looking and saying, well, it looks like Trump is a slam dunk to win the presidency. We don't want him putting tariffs on our Japanese steel again. Let's buy U.S. steel. Then we have access to the market. It's domestically made, and there's no tariffs on that steel, and that gives us an advantage inside the United States with a manufacturer that's already doing significant business in the United States.
Yeah, and you also have access to the global marketplace, with any production that you want to set up anywhere else if you want to expand that and export to the world.
Well, and the other thing, too, I mean, they have steel manufacturing in Europe, U.S. Steel.
Right, yeah.
So it gives them that to if Europe decides to, do the entire tariff thing. It's interesting because at one of his campaign stops the other day, I forgot to mention this, Trump was talking about how we got to lower prices. And I'm like, oh, okay, I wonder, I didn't listen to the entire speech. Mm-hmm. I wondered in the same speech if he said we're going to lower prices by having a 10% across the board tariff on every product that comes into the United States.
Right.
But did he? I didn't hear that as part of the message. He said that a couple of months ago, and I don't know if any of his advisors said to him, look, you can't talk about putting 10% tariffs on every product that comes into the United States. Prices are what is affecting people right now. The Biden administration doesn't understand that. They can't get it through their heads. We can't be promoting the fact that we're going to raise prices if you become president.
Yeah.
So when he was talking about prices the other day, it made me wonder, okay, is he going to drop the 10%?
He might, because there may have been someone that said, or maybe he just realized, you can't get away with that. You're doing damage. Right. And you don't need to do that right now with the populace. They're already on board with you.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It sounds like a Herbie Hancock Christmas.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Wow. It's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So we got that covered. You already have a number of senators lining up against the sale. Will be interesting to see how that goes.
Look, it's in the interest of especially a trade partner like Japan to be open to essentially want to open it to a greater global marketplace. I would have concerns there too, also about further acquisitions of a Nippon, or something else down the road. I guess is the concern. In other words, if you let it out of the house now, what control the problem with something like steel, just like with energy, the more that it's controlled from outside the U.S., the greater the security risk. And that would be my concern. And that's short-term, long-term. It's in the interest of Japan to keep everything, I don't know what the plans are, but it's in the interest of the owners to essentially, these owners, new owners, to keep everything going in the U.S. But it doesn't mean that there aren't other parties interested in that. Imagine, we saw the impact of Russian oil, right? You saw with shutting down the imports of Russian oil, there was this compounding effect on 3 of the refineries on the West Coast that started with the shutdown during COVID, and then the whole Russia thing happened, and the Russian oil was for the most part going to those 3 refineries, and so I don't believe any of those 3 are reopened as of yet. And the problem is that you see that kind of impact. Now, we shouldn't be purchasing Russian oil, but it still has an impact. We shouldn't let Iran sell oil on the global marketplace. Those are security concerns. That is about supply, but you have to manage stuff like that with those kind of sanctions.
We shouldn't let Iran's proxies that they fund attack shipping in the Red Sea or oil tankers in the Red Sea. BP now is not going to ship through there. They're going all the way around the Horn of Africa to come around. I was looking at the route yesterday. They said it's going to make it more expensive. Right. I'm like, I wonder when that's going to hit. I'm driving to work thinking that. And I look at the gas station right around the corner from me, gas up 30 cents in one day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, boy, here we go. Now, but here's the question. Maybe America does care about it now because of you see the unreasonably low polling numbers
Yeah.
of Biden. That's what the media is saying. This is unreasonable that people don't appreciate. But you think about it, it's pretty slam. I got to find it. I was on YouTube yesterday. I got to find the congressman that was going back and forth, the Republican congressperson yesterday. It just popped into my head now. And I didn't even get to see the whole thing. I only saw about a minute of it, but he was going through all the things, the Biden administration is doing, saying the Americans don't like this. This is radical. And he talked specifically about, I think that if you explain it to the American public and the American public understood it, that you could get 80% that would say, no, we need to be producing, if we're going to be using oil and natural gas, we need to be producing it here.
Yeah.
Well, natural gas we are, but
Right.
oil, we need to be producing oil here.
Right.
We shouldn't be, there's no reason, it wouldn't be as big of an impact if all of our oil or 90% of our oil was produced here. It wouldn't be that much of an impact of, again, however, gas prices will go up depending on what happens in the Red Sea or whatever. But if we controlled 90% of what we produced instead of where are we now, 55, 60?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Would that make a difference? Of course it would make a difference.
Right.
If you had that type of supply. Now, the good thing is, by the way, I do love the debate that goes on with gasoline prices. The Biden administration, even we played earlier Jim Acosta. Well, yeah, but they're coming down. They're coming down. But gasoline prices are coming down. They're coming down. And the Republicans, then say, yeah, but they're not coming down as far as when he took office. Well, remember when Biden took office, gasoline prices were so incredibly low during the Trump administration because all industry stopped. There was such a huge supply. And so if you look overall, the reason that you have gasoline prices that for the most part are lower than they were a year ago, one of the reasons is probably a slowing world economy. But secondly is the fact that the U.S. fracking is getting back to where it was pre-COVID. And the federal government, and this is the interesting thing, is the Democrats do not want what's happening.
Yeah.
But they
right.
can't stop it on private and state land. They haven't been able to stop it. They've been able to stop it on federal land, but we probably, if you would have had, let's say back in 2008, 2009, the Obama administration come out and say, this is part of our national security. We need to do everything we possibly can to produce all the oil and natural gas. I remember, fracking still hadn't hit its peak at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Remember think about this, Eric, when Obama became president, people were still talking peak oil.
Yeah, right.
We forget about that. You and I
all the way up until, when did I see the one thing on Discovery? I think it was 2011, 2012. For some reason, 2012 stuck in my mind, where it was Discovery Channel, a so-called documentary, and they went out of their way. The person made the point, but went out of their way to make the point on peak oil. And which is something that really, when you look at the reserves, when the Carioca and Tupi fields were found off the coast of Brazil, it was massive. These are huge fields. And then when that happened, and there was a lot of exploration that was going on in the U.S., quietly, because it's the private sector, they don't really, until they've got it, they don't really say anything about it. And there was a company out in West Texas that was coming up with this new drilling technique. And they happened to be buying up a lot of land that up until then, you didn't buy that land for oil production because the terrain would just tear your equipment up. Well, if you have horizontal drilling and there's oil down there, you find a way to get it, and then horizontal drilling and other technologies came about in terms of production, and that kind of ramped everything up in terms of what's available to us. What we can actually get out of the ground matters, not just what's in the ground.
Well,
then everything that's centered around Rifle, Colorado, with in situ conversion, which is not in play right now because it's not, it isn't a feasible situation politically right now. Bush, at the end of 2008, at the end of his term, the second term presidency, he put an executive order and allowed them to move forward on that in situ conversion, in the ground conversion of shale rock, essentially. And the promise was already there. They were making the plans to build those refineries around that production, because if it's in the ground, then you got to put it on a truck. You're not going to build a pipeline. Well, you might, maybe one short pipeline or a few, but essentially you need to process it in that region. The point being is that prices dropped. We were at $147 a barrel in the summer of 2008, and they dropped going in for a couple of reasons. That announcement, but also then as the economy was clearly slowing down at the end of 2008, then you saw that demand drop. And that's kind of where we are right now. If you look, a couple of weeks ago, it was announced that the gasoline inventories were, the gasoline stocks were up over 5%. And it was like, okay, what's going on with this glut? But it's pretty simple. We slow down on the driving, but also globally. There was a thought that there would be from in China and India that there would be greater demand, but that demand has slowed down quite somewhat. They're still in that era of people getting vehicles for the first time in those countries, and we're talking about the two largest countries in terms of population. So those effects of where we are, if you look at it, everything this is why it's so important. We can control Russia, we can control Iran, and we have controlled Russia somewhat. But on Iran, it should be a no-brainer. There should be nobody against choking Iran out of the global oil marketplace. No one.
This just out yesterday, and this really, it's been the last 6 months that they were saying, no, U.S. frackers are going to be able to go through the roof with production.
Mm-hmm.
U.S. frackers return to haunt OPEC's pricing strategy from yesterday from Bloomberg. U.S. crude juggernaut adds equivalent of new Venezuela to supply. U.S. shale is rearing its head just months after the sector was all but written off as a threat to the cartel's sway over worldwide oil markets. Drillers from the Permian Basin in West Texas to the Bakken Shale in North Dakota have ramped up oil production well beyond what analysts foresaw, pushing output to a record just as OPEC and its allies put the brakes on supplies in a bid to arrest price declines. This time last year, U.S. government forecasters were predicting domestic production would average 12.5 million barrels a day during the current quarter. In recent days, that estimate was bumped to 13.3 million.
Yeah.
The difference is equivalent to adding a new Venezuela to the global supplies. And this is with the Obama. You see that thing on Twitter yesterday? It was Karine Jean-Pierre, but it was basically, they AI'd it. And so it was basically Obama, who looked just like Karine Jean-Pierre with the hair and everything, talking like him,
funny.
saying, Barack Obama has no influence on this administration whatsoever. There is no evidence whatsoever. And it's Karine Jean-Pierre saying it.
Yeah.
But the face is Obama.
Wow.
The hair is hers.
Wow.
But the voice is Obama's. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But this is with the Biden administration doing everything they can on the federal level to stop, just like Obama did.
Well, the new
Trying to do
move on
everything.
methane in terms of this would be the byproduct of natural gas production and oil production, but the burning off of methane and the whole thing. This is going to be outlawed as a result of this administration. Now, the good news is it's an administrative move, and that can be turned around by the next administration if they're going to do it. Like Obama turned around in March 2009 and put the brakes on in situ production. And really, there's not going to be, I don't even know in the industry if there is an interest in pursuing that in terms of efficiencies and everything else. But it's a simple equation. When you look at the global marketplace and how huge we are, what we have in our reserves, in the ground available to us, Iran should be a nothing.
Yeah.
By the way, OPEC and all of its member nations, we should scoff, we should laugh anytime they say anything. The global marketplace, remember, oil is a global price. It should laugh at OPEC when they try and flex.
86690 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, when you mentioned before, as we were talking about the last decade and a half of oil production worldwide in the United States, when you mentioned Brazil, the first thing I thought of, do you remember when Obama?
Oh, yeah.
When he was doing everything he could to cut back on oil production in the United States, said, and we're willing as the United States to do everything we possibly can to help Brazil produce as much oil as possible. And you and I just went,
well, and he said,
what the
He
hell?
said to the head of Petrobras,
Yeah.
we can't wait to be your biggest customer.
Yes, exactly.
And Petrobras stands for Petro Brazil. It's state-owned. Now, there were, private investors, including, at one point, George Soros, involved in, that invested in it. But, yeah, we want to be your biggest customer. How about producing here at home, man?
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
I just like that. I like how you added that.
I was thinking the other...
You added the everyone.
Yeah, everyone. I was thinking the other day, because we've been talking about the movie It's a Wonderful Life. It's great. I mean, seriously, great movie. Seriously, great storyline. And then I thought, different actors, right? Al Pacino in the main role. Hey, Bert. My lips bleeding. My lips bleeding, Bert. It could only be Jimmy Stewart.
It could only be Jimmy Stewart, yes.
Past, present, any of the actors, it could only be Jimmy Stewart. Because I often forget, in the first part of that movie, it's, he's got a little bit of attitude about him. You know what I mean? The character. And it's different than, of course, after he's kind of going through, the lesson, then comes back around and, goes through what he's going through. But it is such, the emotional range of that is just awesome. It can only be Jimmy Stewart.
I read where he starts crying in the bar?
Yeah.
I was reading the other day that actually wasn't planned, that it was just, it got so emotional because he had just come out of World War II.
Yeah.
And the memories that he had, because remember, he was a bombing pilot.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you think about what those. I can't even imagine that.
Right.
You went up every single day believing you weren't coming back.
Right.
And then you saw other bombs just shot out of the sky, and you could hear the screams and everything else.
Sure.
And when he was filming that, they said that a lot of his emotion that he had, he was still majorly affected by what he saw up there.
Yeah.
And but you're right. Nobody could have played him there. I don't think nobody could replace Donna Reed.
No.
That she just had that. She had that face. She had that face.
Yeah,
And it was on the other day, and I had to watch. Remember the phone scene where like the guy, can't even think of the other guy who was working in Buffalo, and he was like sort of her boyfriend, and Jimmy Stewart had come over to the house just to, because he liked her all the time.
Right.
And then they're on the phone, she drops the phone, and they're looking at each other. And he's like, no, I'm going to go do what I want in life. Nobody's going to keep me here. And you're like, dude, you're not going anywhere. And then they get into this great big kiss, and it's like, it's over. It's all done.
Right. Yeah, it was so well done. I mean, it was so well played and directed. Because over the years, and I think maybe with age, as you go through more life lessons of, all right, look, what is it I'm trying to accomplish, or how is it that I feel about this? How is it that I view this, or shouldn't I have a different attitude about this, or something like that? And I think we all go through those things, and that was, that storyline of, I mean, that worst feeling you can have as a person, just not wanting to be a part of it all. And then coming back, and then you couldn't appreciate everything more. And that was the thing, running through the street, where he's just, shouting. He's just through hey, Bart, my lip's bleeding. My lip's bleeding. He was so grateful to be back. And the point being is that in that moment, that was confirmation that he was back, and that he had his life, and that he appreciated that. And then the running through the streets and everything else. And it was so well done.
Isn't that the lesson, though, that everything in life is perspective?
It is.
You look at your life and you think it's bad, and then you just say, oh, I know somebody who's in the hospital with cancer. Yeah. Why in the world am I complaining about my life at all?
Right. I'm
healthy. I'm employed. Is life 100% of what I want it to be? Nothing is.
No.
And even in your times of when you say, I don't know how I'm going to get out of it, when you look back at those times when you get older, you look back and go, geez, what an idiot I was.
Yeah.
I had a great life, and I'm complaining about that or thinking about that. It's like, well, you were an idiot back. You were an idiot in your youth.
Well, and to go through the anything and then not fully appreciate certain things, and we all go through that where our mind is fogged with other things and life basically, and then all of a sudden you look back, and maybe a year later, or a few years later, whatever, you look back and go, man, things were going great at my job, or things were, that situation wasn't that bad, or, whatever it might be. Or I didn't take the time to appreciate this other thing that was also going on, during that time. And we're all guilty and or capable of, being in those places. Mm-hmm. It's just the way the mind works.
I always think, this time of the year always brings back, you look back at your past and what you were doing, what were, Christmases of the past. And some of the best memories I have such a great memory. There's two memories of jobs that I had. One was when I was basically a porter janitor at my first job as a senior in high school when I got it. And my first real job, I did paper routes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I was a porter, janitor, and then assistant baker at times.
Right.
But I can remember, working on, because they'd always be open Thanksgiving and even Christmas morning till like noon. And I'd be in there at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Because they were open at 6. And
Yeah.
that's back
Yeah.
then. You didn't make the donuts at another, a manufacturing plant. You
And then
made
have them delivered. Yeah.
You made them there.
Right. Yeah.
And if you remember, Dunkin' Donuts actually had the window where you could watch the baker.
Right.
And it was like, oh, wow, this is great. People are watching me. It's like, wow, I'm like a celebrity. But
if you're making donuts in the morning, you are the most important person right there in that moment.
Oh, I'm telling you, no cop would ever bust me in that town. I was at a donut place. This is going back about 6 months ago. When I was in there were a couple of cops. They said, "Uh-oh, cops, donuts. Go, Are we in trouble?" They go, "No, we love donuts." It was hilarious.
Right here at this place right here in the corner one morning, they opened right as we were getting out of here. And I usually, a couple times along the way, I'm usually buying for my daughter, but I decided I was going to get a couple donuts for myself and my daughter. She would have loved them, by the way. They didn't make it home. But I pull up, and then one of the squad cars is there, and I'm going in. Well, I hope everything is okay. Oh, it's a cop. Never mind. It's a donut place.
Well,
we were talking about the weather or whatever, and he was a great officer.
And I just remember those days as being, just one. I remember Thanksgiving would be open till like noon, and people would come in, and back then the Dunkin' Donuts had their their counter and ashtrays.
Right. Yeah.
People would be smoking. Every day I wake up going, please don't let that secondhand smoke from that long ago get to me, because it was pretty heavy and it was pretty thick. But you'd be out there bringing the donuts, bringing the donut rack in, and helping the and I was like the assistant.
Yeah.
On those days, it wasn't a toilet cleaning day or a stockroom cleaning day.
Right.
It was basically preparing everything for the baker. And it was just, to me, that it was it was a basic job that a high school kid would have, but you just felt, I'll never forget when they told me, we need you to work Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah.
There was no disappointment.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, right. I mean, it was like, wow. And I just remember, and then as it was winding down around noon, and then the last person walked out and it was quiet, and you're cleaning up and you're getting ready to leave by like 12:15.
Right.
Or whatever. I just always remember those moments of being so special. And the same thing when I was a machinist, when I worked actually at, when I was a United Steel worker, but was a machinist and worked for them. Huge bill. I mean, there was probably this building, a number of buildings that were all attached to each other, huge cranes and everything else, probably 20 different buildings.
Yeah.
That, you could walk. Might take you, a half hour to walk across, all the different buildings. But it was Christmas Eve, and everybody had left. I was one of the last people there. I remember checking out and then going into the locker room to get, whatever, my jacket, whatever, in my locker, and then leaving, and the snow was falling. And those are always just such special memories. It's not, and I've told the radio station memory that I have, where I had to work all Christmas Day, and then I left when I worked in Marshall, Texas, back in 80. This would have been 80, the year that it snowed. So it was either 80, winter of 84 or winter of 85. I'm not sure which one it was.
That probably was the winter of 85.
Okay, yeah.
84 into 85. So that would have maybe then that would have, if it was December, it would have been December of 84.
Okay.
Because I know in a town not too far from there, we also had, the weather was crazy.
Yep. And I worked from 6 in the morning until 8 at night.
Yeah, right.
I was there the entire day as a DJ because everybody else was married, and I just said, "Nah, I was actually the boss, and I could have chosen not to do so." And I went, "No, I'm going to do it."
Right.
And that was when people actually brought me food and the calls. Merry Christmas. You're playing them all day long, and it was just. And then people realize you're at the station alone. It's a small, my town of 25,000.
Yeah.
But still, that was viewed as small, and you'd never do it today. People come and leave me food? I
Yeah.
don't think so. Eric, you eat it first. You
Yeah,
tested it out.
exactly.
Give it to Alan.
Right.
Give it to Alan. Have
Yeah, we
Alan.
don't do that in talk radio. We don't. Yeah, we don't.
We don't do that.
We don't accept food.
But those are some of them. And let's put it, in all of those instances, I was dirt poor.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when I was at first in radio. I had no money.
Yeah,
Actually, the listeners bringing me food
Yeah.
was my
Paid
meal.
for your meal.
That
yeah,
was
right.
my meal for Christmas.
Right,
So
yeah.
those are just some of the, when I think, because we're talking about It's a Wonderful Life, and I think those are the things I look back at, and those are such wonderful
Right.
times. Not the family times are too, but I'm talking about when you start to get out on your own and things like that, and things that you wouldn't think. Being around the beautiful Christmas tree and family there and everything else, and the Christmas carols playing. That's an obvious.
Yeah.
I'm going
Yeah.
to remember that. But
Yeah.
it's amazing the things that I cherish in my life that have to do with just an experience where a lot of people might say, oh, I don't want to have to work Christmas or Thanksgiving morning, or what, I got to work all Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first said it, I go, I got to do this. Everybody else is married. I got to do
Right.
this. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and when I did it, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
So.
And that's, I remember the times in our first house, it was tiny. And the kids were small. We had this little gas-powered heater in the living room. And that was, my wife and I called it our fireplace.
Wow.
And, like you said, you're not making much. My wife and I were both working. But, man, we didn't want for anything. You had dreams, aspirations, that kind of thing. No, but we didn't sit around going, well, it should be. It was like, okay, if we want this, then we'll have to do this. We'll have to move on and, or whatever. But it wasn't that, just, I think as you go through life and you go and you kind of maneuver situations and this is why right now it's so concerning for me as I get older. And I know people are resilient, but with inflation, things that are hitting, that are a choice that is made by the government, which is a choice, the government is a choice of the people, is especially frustrating because it puts people in a power. And when that economist said it last week on Fox Business, and he said, you're never going to regain that same purchasing power that you had, generally speaking, as a public. And we won't. Those prices aren't going to come down. The rate of inflation may come down, but inflation is constant. And so it's adding, it's on top of, it's compounding. And it's a choice. It was a very poor decision. And it's, there has to be different choices to change this. We have to make different choices. We have to choose as a nation not to allow that, not to give them that kind of power, because it isn't capitalism that is making you lonely if you're lonely. I don't want anybody to be lonely, but if you're sad, whatever, it's not capitalism. Capitalism is the original crowdfunder. That's what capitalism is. And we should be doing that as a nation to empower everybody and give them their own choices as families, as individuals. So this time of year or any time of year or any time during their life, those choices are theirs because they have greater buying power. That greater buying power is that power that allows you to make your choices and gives you that security for yourself and for your family.
It also, the expectation, my expectations were always just to take advantage of the opportunities that freedom gives me.
Yes.
That's what I wanted.
Sure.
I didn't care how hard I had to work to get there. That's why when I got my first $13 check for cleaning toilets, I was unreasonably happy.
Yeah.
To go back to.
It's the old saying, well, money can't buy everything, can't buy happiness, but you still need it. And it does provide that security.
It does, and it also gives you a sense of worth earning it.
Look, you don't have to be a millionaire.
No.
But having that security and that capitalism being preserved, generally speaking, should be the direction we're heading back to, and I hope it is.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, the one thing that encompasses it when you look at the character traits that people have, you know, and it's always appropriate to talk about it this time of the year. We talk about It's a Wonderful Life, and as we started this conversation on, and you know, about appreciating what you have and having a perspective of, you know, where you are, where you live, the opportunities you have, the freedoms you have, and being grateful for that. And, you know, we talked about the study that the other day that talked about loneliness, and we went, it's pure BS. And a lot of the analysis of it's pure BS also. I'm like, define loneliness, you know, to begin with. But I'll tell you one thing. It's you look at it, I'm grateful for everything. I've always been grateful for everything I've had. I've been grateful for life and health and freedom and everything else. You know, it's the culture I came from. You work for. I think that's a completely different mindset from people who feel entitled and that they're victims. You talk about loneliness. They talked about how, you know, in capitalist societies, people are actually less lonely. They're more happy.
Right.
John Stossel was going through the number of studies on that. We played that on yesterday's show, and I can see why. Because if you are appreciative, if you're grateful for your life, your health, and freedom and opportunity, everything else is hard work.
Sure.
You're going to be a more optimistic person. If you feel that you're a victim, you can't be happy because somebody else is in control of your happiness and your life.
Even when things are going great for you, you can't be happy.
No.
Walking in a winter wonderland. Gary and Eric on Red Eye Radio.
Well, maybe not for Christmas for a significant portion of the country. There may not be snow.
I'm going to be doing some planting. I was walking out tonight, and I was thinking, I guess I still need to do lawn maintenance.
Yeah, so do I. I got to cut my lawn again.
Yeah.
The crabgrass is starting to grow.
Yeah.
So
I don't have any. I got leaves to clean up, and my grass is, you know, kind of stalled, but there's a lot of green still left in my grass, and I'm like, well, I guess we're not going to have a winter. I don't know, or
don't
we'll have
say
it all,
that.
yeah, I know. As soon as I do,
I
Freeze Apocalypse,
no,
the sequel.
Got to get past Valentine's Day where there's nothing in the long range forecast.
Yeah.
Then I'll start buying into it. You know, I read this article yesterday. It's an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, and I thought to myself, wow, this reminds me of something I said last week when I said, and please take it in the proper context. Very important you say that these days. But when Harvard, when the president didn't resign and the board didn't get rid of her, and I went, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want is them to get rid of the president, and then it's like problem solved when we know the problem's not solved. This keeps This keeps the debate going, and this article reminds me of that when you have something. You know, we look in for example, the summer of 2020 and everything that happened there. You know, the lie that was told about police. The police are systemically, racist. You see that completely turned around now.
Yeah.
You don't see businesses getting involved in Black Lives Matter anymore. It's funny because I did see part of the part of the highlights of the Bills and the Cowboys the other day. And as
Yeah.
the Bills are getting ready to score a touchdown at the end of the end zone, I'm like, what does that say there? It says end racism. So has the NFL now decided that the identity politics of the Democrats is completely wrong, and all the anti-Semitism and racism that we see today from the left is wrong, and that's what they're promoting? I hope.
Or is it one of these ambiguous, the NFL is against bad things, and we're only going to support what our viewers support?
No, I know it's still from 2020. That's what it's still from. But
Yeah.
This was in there. Woke students will outgrow it. Intersectionality has thrived on campus, but it will not survive now that it's being exposed to sunlight. You might have been shocked to see American college students demonstrate in support of Hamas, but we should be careful not to overreact and expect the U.S. to degenerate into such hatred. The support for Hamas's goal of destroying Israel did not surprise anyone who has followed the comment sections of student newspapers where readers have advocated such horrific plans for years. What is news is that these ideas have emerged into public attention. That's a great point. Even support for Hamas's Islamic supremacist ideology did not surprise anyone reading student newspapers. The most significant change in students' moral philosophy in recent years has been the popularity of an identity-based ideology known as intersectionality. That demands special privileges for all groups deemed oppressed. Intersectionality creates a pecking order with blacks, Muslims, and LGBTs on the top and whites, East Asians, and Jews on the bottom. The result is a zany coalition in which gay-hating Islamic supremacists and gay intersectionality devotees go to the same demonstrations, and groups emerge that sound like parodies, such as Queers for Palestine. That's like, what a great line.
Yeah.
Nutty ideas persist longer than they used to because ideas can dwell in the safe place of like-minded groups on the internet. But to have an effect on real life, ideas need to emerge from the shadows, and they may not survive. As has been observed, sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants. White supremacists found that out in 2017 when they emerged into the sunlight in Charlottesville. If they expected support on the right, they were disappointed. Although Donald Trump's critics accused him of not denouncing the supremacists forcefully enough, in fact, Mr. Trump declared from the beginning that they should be condemned totally. Oh, it's good to have honest writers, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
The same is happening to the identity-based demonstrators who emerged into the sunlight after the October 7th massacre. If they expect support from the leaders on the left, they were disappointed. President Biden backed defeating Hamas. All right, you're going a little bit too far. He's playing both sides there. And so did Democratic Senator John Fetterman in a letter last week denouncing Israel for the way it is conducting its Gaza campaign. Even Bernie Sanders acknowledged that the Jewish state has a right to go to war against Hamas. The speed of change on these issues is dizzying. University presidents were unable to defend applying different standards to Jews and other minorities. The sudden change is reminiscent of evolutionary biology, in which the status prevails until a stress triggers rapid change, a pattern called punctuated equilibrium. In the ecosystem of ideas, sunlight is such a stress. And then continue to say, don't expect that the identity-based views now emerging into sunlight will flourish. Such approaches have not fared well in United States history. We defeated white supremacy and enshrined identity-blind principles of equality in the 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Many people assume that the ideology of the young is a predictor of the future, but students grow up. They start out as pacifists until they realize other people want to kill them. They start out as socialists until they realize that socialism brings economic destruction. In the real world, they learn through experience and exposure to other viewpoints that many policies that sound nice lead to terrible consequences.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, because it's always presented by the left as, under the guise of caring, of under the guise of something good. And then you realize what they're trying to achieve. It's, remember the word acceptance. There should be greater acceptance. Acceptance grew into, no, you need to now allow, and then allow had to be, no, now you need to support us. Now you need to march in our parade. Now silence is violence. And, that's the evolution of it all. I don't care how you live your life. I don't want to change. I'm not going to, personally, change the definition of words. And your life is yours, but mine is also mine. And the left has turned into this angry mob. And it's not everyone on the left. In fact, it is not even close to the majority of the rank and file on the left, yet it's still allowed. It's still allowed to happen. And until that is shut down, I don't know how the left moves forward. They're still winning elections. The Democrats are still winning elections.
I would look at, and, again, take the politics out of it and the personalities out of it. If you look, for example, in the summer of 2020, the entire thing, we knew it was going to fall apart. Mm-hmm. And we called it, and we were one of the few. But all of a sudden, it was, think about how quick it happened. Police departments are systemically racist to hunt down and kill blacks.
Yeah.
And that is across the nation. And it applies to every single police department in the nation. And black officers are not black anymore. They've given up their blackness because they have become police officers. And now they're blue, not black, whatever the hell that meant.
Right.
And you and I remember the two white women that were screaming at the black cop, telling him that he wasn't black. And we went, stuff like that doesn't last. And when you tell a lie, as they did, because we know it was a lie. How do we know it was a lie? The polling showed that every demographic was happy with the police department that locally served them. What they were against when it came to police was the abstract. Well, I like my police department, but those over there, which has to be all the rest, are evil.
Right.
Well, that's not going to last too long. And in order to push that ideology, that was done through intimidation.
Yep.
If you didn't agree with it, you were a racist. If you didn't agree with their theory, and if you didn't support Black Lives Matter, the lives of Black Lives Matter, well, then you were a racist. But it wasn't pushed. You did not. That wasn't an ideology that was trying to convince people that they were right. It was demanding through intimidation that you agree with them. In a free society, that doesn't work. Now, what did we find out? The people that were lying about the police, Black Lives Matter, we found out what? So many of them were in it for their own monetary benefit. It had nothing to do with truth or justice or ending racism, because initially they lied in order to get the public to respond to them.
Yep.
And then it was the blue wall of intimidation like I've never seen before. Then you look, again, we'll take another example. You look at the entire radical transgender movement, the same thing. There was never a discussion on it.
No.
Discussion wasn't allowed.
No.
Discussion was violence. If you asked a question saying, well, wait a minute, you're saying which is the first thing. So you're saying because you say so, you're a biological woman? How? Well, we're not saying that. We're saying gender and sex are different. Well, that's what you used to say. But now that you're saying that men should compete against women, you're making the argument that men can be women. Otherwise, men shouldn't be competing against women. Well, you asking that question makes you transphobic.
Yeah.
There was no discussion.
Any discussion meant you were a bigot.
Right. There was never any discussion on it. And so what has all of this done? You think, and we had said this before, we said, look, because you and I were going after the radical transgender movement over a decade ago.
Oh, yeah.
And we were saying, where are the women? And then you saw all the feminists just crumble.
Right.
Crumble. Because the man was telling them what to do, the liberal feminists crumbled.
Yeah.
I'm a man, I'll define what a woman is. Oh, yes, please, do it, do it, do it. We are women liberal feminists. We're going to crumble under that and pretend that we're still feminist.
Yeah.
Come on, nobody bought that. But everything, when you see it now, everything is being debated each and every day. Everything is being debated. All these radical ideas. And the side that has lied, the bigoted side, the racist side, we are seeing who those people are.
And as you said, and we've been saying since, as it applies to Israel, aside from Hamas, the radical protesters, this radicalism, society will only tolerate it for so long. And the greater the voice gets or the more radical it becomes in its position, the tighter the clock is for the acceptance of that kind of behavior.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I feel like it's somehow wrong to interrupt the Christmas music.
Kind of is, right? Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't interrupt the Christmas music.
Would you guys shut up with all your talking on your talk show? We actually got that one time. What's with all the talking? You got a social media message.
Yeah, we actually did one
Hey,
time.
what's up with all the talking? Where's the music? Some days, we're with you.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. How's everybody today? Welcome to Tuesday, the 19th of December.
Getting down to the wire now, folks.
Yeah. Ho, ho, ho. Santa not being too good to Biden. Just reading here, as Democrats panic over 2024, Washington Post dredges up Biden brothers' ties to corrupt Mississippi lawyer and associates. I'm just going to read the first part of it here.
All right.
Sunday's eye-popping 4,000-word Washington Post report on Biden corruption ties is, to my mind, more indication that a serious move is underway within the top ranks of the Democratic Party establishment to nudge President Joe Biden into bowing out of the 2024 presidential race. Andrew McCarthy, National Review. And goes through everything that's happened, the second Hunter Biden indictment.
Right.
Saying, and talking about, well, even though it doesn't focus on the president, the dots connect him, as you and I both said.
It's, it's, again, I don't know. What took the Post so long, I guess, is my question.
Well, they may want him out.
Well,
that's what he said. That's why they're doing it now.
What's interesting is that we've seen this ebb and flow of this kind of approach. Well, the president is getting older. I'm sorry, you just now became aware of that, and it kind of seemed to go quiet right after Governor Newsom got trounced by Governor DeSantis. Oh, no, we don't have anybody to step in.
Well, I saw the other day, yesterday, the day before, I can't remember exactly when I saw it.
Yeah.
When I saw that headline, Biden's polling now beneath Harris.
That's how bad it is.
When I found it here.
We didn't think it could get that bad.
Where is it here? Okay, even Kamala Harris is now viewed more favorably than Joe Biden as Democrats panic over 2024 polls.
Yeah.
And so that's in another article that was written by, hang on here.
Oh.
I got so much paperwork in front of me here. New York Post. Americans may have found something they like less than a hypothetical Kamala Harris presidency, 4 more years of Joe Biden. The new poll up Monday shows the Veep's favorability rating inching above the commander-in-chief for the first time. Oh, that's going to blow. He's going to blow over that one.
Well, we let's see here. Over the last couple of weeks, the civics polling has been as high as negative 21.
Yeah.
And right now it's at negative 19. It's a running daily poll, civics, and on job approval for Biden. And it's, obviously not good. And they're a liberal pollster. And it's funny, they kind of fell asleep for, maybe a year?
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers just didn't move. Right. He was underwater, but it was like 52-39 for the longest time.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so you look at the Monmouth poll, Biden polling at 34, Harris at 35. And goes Andrew McCarthy goes into his article. He said, however much the prosecutor labored to keep the president's name out of it, it cannot obscure that Hunter and the other Bidens made millions by trading on the now president's political influence.
Yeah.
We've seen remarks by the Obama whisperer, David Axelrod, to the effect that Biden should consider bowing out of the reelection bid, and then more recently adding that the president's record low approval rating is very, very dark news for his campaign. And just this weekend, we found an unidentified source familiar with former President Barack Obama's thinking, telling the Wall Street Journal that Obama knows the presidential race is going to be close. He feels the Democrats could very well lose, and he worries that the alternative, Donald Trump, is pretty dangerous for democracy.
You know who's familiar with Barack Obama's thinking? Barack Obama.
Well, this, mind you, at the same time, Hunter Biden is defying a subpoena for a deposition testimony issued by 2 House committees, for which the House has signaled it will hold him in contempt, and with a full House vote to formally approve an impeachment investigation of the president. The timing of the Post report is thus intriguing. For the president, it will sting for several reasons. First, it's the Post, a pillar of the Democratic administration's guard. This is not just more brickbats hurled by House Oversight Chairman James Comer and the other Republicans investigating Biden family influence peddling. Second, the subject matter of the report goes all the way back to the start of Joe Biden's Senate career in the early 70s. Yes, the family business goes back decades, meaning the Post has intentionally dredged up unseemly details about Biden's past that have been vaguely known for decades, but that Biden must have figured were long forgotten. Third, the length of the report shows that the Post had to have spent weeks reporting its story. The paper could have dropped this report at any time, but it chose to do so when the president and his campaign are reeling. It's really interesting stuff. And then you saw the other story that came out that the AmeriCorps gave James Biden a $600K loan on the promise that he'd deliver funding from the Middle East,
right,
which he did not deliver. But this is I guess they talked to the AmeriCorps Chapter 11 bankruptcy trustee who told the House Oversight Committee on Monday that the now bankrupt healthcare company previously provided a $600,000 loan to James Biden on the promise that he could bring in funding from the Middle East that never materialized. So, I mean, all that's coming out here at the exact same time. And then the border. You see the pictures from Eagle Pass, Texas yesterday. Oh, my gosh. You see the story out there that we're stopping commerce.
Yeah.
At the border. We're stopping trains that are coming in from it. That's commerce coming in order so those Border Patrol agents can help expedite illegal immigrants into the United States.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But actually it does if the administration believes that Congress is going to do something to change the open border. It makes perfect sense from Biden's viewpoint. Well, let's ramp it up. Let's right now divert resources to bringing people, more people in between now and the time Congress does whatever it's going to do.
Unless Congress is going to say, sorry, there's no deal unless you deport people back.
Yep.
Breitbart had an article on that. Republican senators, and we had talked about this yesterday, but Breitbart had a story on it yesterday after we had talked about it. Republican senators stiff-arm Democratic rush for a border deal. Republican senators are stiff-arming a rush by Democrat and White House officials to redirect and hide chaotic border migration during the 2024 election. Rushed and secret negotiations, we read this yesterday, rushed and secret negotiations with Democrats who want an open border and who caused the current crisis will not secure the border, said a letter from 15 GOP senators. The American people deserve an open and transparent process, which cannot occur until the House returns to work the week of January 8th. Accordingly, we request this conference be held the week of January 8th, but not before. The letter is bad news for the White House because Biden needs a quick deal to minimize the visibility of the migration flood throughout the 2024 election. Biden's election problem is that his Cuban-born pro-migration border chief, Mayorkas, has created an out-of-control border flood in a campaign year. On Sunday, for example, Biden's deputies closed legal routes across the border to reassign the border officers to the mission of registering and releasing Biden's flood of illegal migrants. More than 10,000 illegal migrants are flooding across the border every day, in addition to thousands who sneak over the border or fly into airports. The eager-to-work migrants are traveling to cities around the country, often without any resources or the ability to speak English. The numbers are so great that cities have burned through the 2023 federal cash that is intended to quietly distribute, house, and feed the migrants. So it's like, what do the Democrats in the Senate or Republicans in the Senate have in mind? I don't know. So there you go. But I mean, it's a complete mess right now, and probably there is that train of thought. Look, Biden is only doing this because now it's election year.
No, I mean, that's exactly what pops into my mind. It automatically.
And we need to get exactly what we want to get here.
Right.
It was interesting. I maybe it was somebody from National Review said, you think about it. All Biden has to do, he would be a hero. His polling numbers would go up. Mm-hmm. If he said, look, I don't agree with what's going on at the border. I don't agree with Mayorkas. Could you imagine his polling numbers? What would happen if he fired Mayorkas and he said, we are deporting people that are here. We're going to go through. We're going to hire. I've talked to the Republicans. We're going to hire a ton more judges here. We're going to move through this, and we're going to immediately start looking at everybody. And if you come into the country, the border is closed now. If you come into the country, you're going to be sent back. There is no more. Everything from this point on you have to wait if you want asylum here in the United States.
Right. Yeah.
And if he did it in order to get the funding for Israel and Ukraine, his polling numbers would go up, but he just can't do that. They can't do that.
No, look, I don't know how a president like Biden, as a liberal Democrat, with the situations that are in place right now, negotiates anything in 24. I don't know what you promote either. What does he promise for the next 4 years? What is he promising
nothing.
right now?
Nothing.
Nothing. And Trump comes in with a built-in, make America great again, but a built-in thought in the voters' minds that, at least on the economy, wow, I sure would like to go back to 2018, 2019.
The border.
And the border.
Oh.
He owns the border, and he has from the beginning. So, because, the left isn't going to vote for him, but the right and the middle. And you saw the polling on independents.
Yeah.
The difference in the last election cycle
at this time,
where they were, Biden versus Trump, and it's turned around. It is in Trump's favor, according to that poll.
Huge reversal.
Not just with independents. Yeah. That's the game changer. If it's accurate, and if Trump holds the independents, it's over.
I saw an article, the LA Times had it, about Democrats in Nevada. Now, again, they didn't take a poll, but they talked to a ton of Democrats in Nevada who said, we don't want Newsom. We're next door.
Yeah, right.
A lot of them had lived in California.
No way. Yeah. No, I mean, when you go to Lake Tahoe, South Lake Tahoe is on the border. Mm-hmm. So there's state line Nevada, which is, on the better side in terms of governments. And then you cross the street. Actually, it's a sidewalk. And it's California. And we hear it all the time when we're there. Hey, if you're ever thinking about buying property, buy on the Nevada side, not the California side. But in Nevada, they know full well. You bet.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Roadside inspections all begin with the driver interview, during which the officer will gather basic information from the driver and prepare the driver for the inspection. The officer will also be evaluating the driver, determining if the driver can speak English, is under the influence of anything, has an illness, or is fatigued. The officer will ask the driver for required documents, including vehicle and driver credentials, the driver's log, and shipment paperwork. The officer may also conduct a vehicle inspection. Before beginning the inspection, the officer will take steps to make sure the inspection can be done safely. These include chalking the wheels, wearing personal protective equipment, and explaining what will be required of the driver. The driver needs to pay close attention to these instructions so that the vehicle inspection can be conducted in a manner that is safe for the inspection official. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. And some of the photos that came out from Eagle Pass, Texas yesterday were just mind-boggling, the number of people crossing the border. You look at it, and they're saying, you know, that's been bad before, but never like this. Bill Malusian was out there from Fox News just saying, I've never seen anything like this.
After the international bridge situation in Del Rio a while back, there was more focus on Eagle Pass because it's, a half hour or so south of Del Rio. And there has been that surge because, and I would love to know from the other side, all right, I mean, I know why Del Rio was the crossing of choice, you know, during that period for those individuals. What was it, 10,000 or more under the international bridge? But the crossing there in Eagle Pass has been problematic for, over the years, for a long, long time. What you're seeing now is a result of the talk that's going on Capitol Hill. As we've told you that whatever the political scenario that's going on, it's going to drive the activity. If those who want to come here believe Congress is about to start deporting, they want to get here, and then they're going to, boom, they're in the wind. Get across, and then they're in the wind. Everything else is secondary. Just get across and get to the U.S., and they know that Congress right now is talking. They know that the political season is coming, and Biden is going to have to, flex. He's going to have to show something, for political purposes, so you want to get here.
Meanwhile, Texas is trying to fight back. The governor yesterday signed a new law giving local police the authority to arrest migrants who cross the border illegally. Details on this coming up.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Listen where you wish and when you wish. If you can't listen live overnight, we make it very easy for you.
And thank you.
All right, so here in the state of Texas, the governor signed a new law giving local police the authority to arrest migrants who cross the border illegally. After the signing ceremony, Governor Abbott said the goal of the bill is to stop the tidal wave of illegal entry into Texas. If you don't believe it was a tidal wave, all you have to do is look at some of the photos yesterday from Eagle Pass, Texas. Just unbelievable when you see the number of people crossing, not trying to cross, but crossing.
Yeah.
Once in custody, migrants could either agree to a Texas judge's order to leave the United States or be prosecuted on misdemeanor charges of illegal entry. Migrants who don't comply could face arrest again under more serious felony charges. The move marks a dramatic step by the Republican governor to police illegal immigration. Abbott has repeatedly slammed the Biden administration for not doing enough to address the border crisis. Texas has bused more than 65,000 migrants to cities across America and has installed razor wire along the banks of the Rio Grande. The law is likely to face legal challenges as immigration enforcement is a federal responsibility. Opponents, meanwhile, have called the measure their most dramatic attempt by a state to police immigration since a 2010 Arizona law denounced by critics as a show me your papers bill that was largely struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. 30 former U.S. immigration judges who have served both under Republican and Democratic administrations signed a letter this month condemning the measure as unconstitutional. Mexico has also rebuked the measure under bilateral and international agreements. Mexico is required to accept deportations of its citizens, but not those of other countries. Under the Texas law, migrants ordered to leave would be sent to ports of entry along the border with Mexico, even if they are not Mexican citizens. The Mexican government categorically rejects any measure that would allow local and state authorities to detain or deport Mexicans or other nationalities to Mexican soil, Mexico's Foreign Relations Department wrote in a statement. White House spokesperson derided the law as extreme and argued that it will make communities in Texas less safe. The spokesperson says, generally speaking, the federal government, not individual states, is charged with determining how and when to remove non-citizens for violating the immigration laws. Well, the goal of this law, they knew this was going to court.
Yeah.
Is to get this before the Supreme Court and to keep it in the news. They probably in most courts, conservative or constructionist or liberal, would probably lose on the sending migrants to the border, to the
border crossing,
the entry point, who aren't Mexicans.
Right.
Texas probably will have problems with that one. Now, whether you could send them on a plane probably would be fine. Put them on a plane or
back to their country of origin.
Back to their country of origin, whatever. If you could get other countries to agree with the state of Texas to do that. But I think the goal here is to get as much publicity as you possibly can as this moves up the courts.
Well, and the first publicity you're going to get is a court case being filed by the Biden administration.
Right.
That is something that, or certainly you want. I mean, I guess, I don't know. There could there be others? Could the ACLU file a case on this too? There could be others that could. I know the ACLU mentioned something, but you want the Biden administration to file because you want Joe Biden in the position of saying, no, don't send them back officially. And that's exactly what that would be. Now they're going to try and come out and say, well, no, it's already, look, we've already done this in court. We've already, the case in Arizona, blah, 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 Arizona lost that case, and we believe Texas will lose the case. It's against the Constitution, blah, 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 blah. But the aesthetics of it are Biden is fighting Texas to make sure that Texas does not deport.
Well, I think there's a great opportunity here for the state of Texas and the Republican Party in general to promote and make the case before the Supreme Court of the United States, which is, we didn't create this disaster.
Right.
You know, as Supreme Court justices, anybody who pays attention to the news understands that the federal government is not abiding by their own law.
Right. Yeah.
And they're not abiding by their own federal law, and they are creating an absolute nightmare. And there is a legit constitutional question here. And the question is, if the federal government purposely enacts a policy to harm a state, because this would be Texas,
Right.
not states, because Texas would be the one that you're filing suit against, or filing the court case against, and Texas could respond if the federal government, because the federal government's job is to secure the border. They've done the opposite.
Yeah.
They've done the opposite of what the law requires, and it is harming the state of Texas.
Right.
We can't get any reimbursement for the damage that is being done. We have no other choice. What do we do in this case? Is it because you think about it, how many times, except maybe somebody may want to file that for federal taxes, but taxes is under the Constitution already, so you really can't fight that. Because you could say, well, the government's doing harm to my state by taxing us.
Right.
But taxes are legal and it's in the Constitution. There is nothing in the Constitution that says that the federal government, who is tasked with protecting us from an open border and chaos at the border, who has done the exact opposite, who has said, to hell with the law, we are going to do major damage to the border cities and other cities, as New York. Who knows? It'd be interesting if New York City and Chicago joined the lawsuit as friends of friends of Texas,
Right.
On this. But I think it's a legit question: is the federal government constitutionally allowed to harm the states without any reimbursement back to those states? And is the federal government allowed not to obey the letter of the law, and in doing so harm states? Because that's what you're looking for. Are you being harmed in a federal lawsuit? Now, it will be the federal government filing it, but Texas can claim we've been harmed. And there's no way that you can't make that case that you haven't been harmed. You can't do that. New York City could make the case that we've been harmed because of the Biden administration's policy.
No doubt.
Chicago could make that. Los Angeles could make.
You could have Mayor Adams and Greg Abbott in court standing on the same side. But here's the thing, is that, I guess it gets into the weeds. Well, I can hear it in the hearing. The back and forth would be, or their defense would be, that, well, we've done this measure, we've done that measure, from the federal government standpoint, and these are the methodologies we have used. And even though these surges can't, we can't control how many people want to come here, although it was the head of this administration, Biden himself, who invited them, blah, 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 and we believe our methods are tried and true. This is an unusual set of circumstances, series of events, and blah, 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 blah. The damage is done, and this is where it goes back to the Arizona case, is that the state is responsible for also protecting its citizens.
Yes.
And it has to do whatever it can do in order to do that. In the event that there are shortcomings from, whether it's the federal government or anything else, they have to do what is within their power. And you and I both agree on this, I believe. We believe this is within their power. Now, again, how they deport and if they're not citizens of Mexico, how that's going to be handled, you're going to have to work through that. I don't know how that's going to.
I would think, though, that you can make a case. You can sit there and you can say, look at what the Trump administration did. Look at the number of people that were crossing per day.
Yeah.
When the Biden administration came in, the Biden administration said, okay, no more remain in Mexico, and boom, this happened. So because of what was done by the federal government, and the federal government stating, well, there's so many people crossing, we don't have the detention centers, because under law, you're supposed to be detained. You're not supposed to be out on your own. Right. You're supposed to be, detained in a center. Mm-hmm. That's not happening. What they're saying is, well, there's too many people crossing. Well, you're allowing them to cross.
Right. They created
and so the federal government created the situation by not abiding by the law.
Yeah.
And then when the centers became full, instead of saying, okay, we closed the border, they said, no, everybody come into the United States.
Yeah.
Creating the insane situation at these border cities that have been severely harmed, and the hardship, the actual financial hardship. You don't have to look at us. We can tell you, look at the financial hardship on New York City, and the same thing is going on here, here down in Texas. Here's how much it's costing. Here's what it was during the Trump. You can actually lay out what happened during the Trump administration, because the figures are there, and compare it here and say the only reason it's happening is because the federal government is advocating their responsibility to do their constitutional duty to protect and secure the border. It's harming our state, and we're being told that we have no way as a state to protect our citizens. They're citizens of the United States, and the federal government won't protect them. It's up to us to protect them. And are you saying, as a Supreme Court, that we have no recourse if the federal government wishes to hurt our citizens? It's a good argument for this particular court, for this makeup of the court. Now, you would do it. I did that just ad lib, probably do it in better legalese than
different,
I just did.
I think, too, what's working for Texas that was not in place to work for Arizona is this whole changing of the definition of asylum. And that has, in and of itself, created the surge, facilitated the surge in Texas. And that is what's different with what was going on when Jan Brewer was governor in Arizona.
And by the way, this is a little bit different, too, in the fact that this wasn't the police stopping a ar that was 10 miles inland and asking if
Which
you were a
liberals
citizen.
were saying, well, that's just random. That's like the Gestapo or something.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're talking at the border,
it's
whole different, even legal philosophy if they're crossing the border there.
Right.
And so that would make it, I think, probably different than the Arizona law. Will be interesting, though. 866-98 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yesterday's show we were talking about, and this is something that's been discussed a million times. Well, close to a million times. I don't want to exaggerate. And it's, how do you stop illegal immigration? Well, the amnesty thing is what kicked this off. But if you combine the fact of, okay, if you come over here, we send you back, and we find employers.
Yeah.
If they hire you.
Yeah, go after them.
That's the best solution that you can have. And we talked about that yesterday. A poll was out on the percentage of Americans who want to see business prosecuted for hiring illegal immigrants. So we'll get to that and a couple other things, because I think it's really important when you look at this as a Supreme Court case, because if the Supreme Court says no, it's the federal government's purview. So if the federal government wishes to screw over states, they can do it. Well, to what extent? To what extent? Because that would be my next question. To what extent can the federal government damage a state and the citizens of that state?
Well, because this goes beyond failed policy. The policy changed the definition of asylum, which broadened the potential number of people who could legally come in, at least temporarily. And that's what caused damage to Texas.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.